Hey folks, it's Chuck Mott here from Chuck Mott Music, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about how I set up my RC500. In general, I have one setting now that I think would pretty much work for everything. If I had I wish I had a drum machine to play my own drums, but I don't. I usually get drums internally from within the RC500. So that being said, let me go ahead and take you through. I got a little bit of a cold. Let me go ahead and take you through my settings here. So, there's a few good videos out there on how to set up your RC500 for your for verse chorus looping. I'm going to go through the settings that I've got today, but everything, just to clarify, everything I have is set up for verse chorus looping now. And the only thing I like to be able to do is to start and stop the drums independently. Most of the time, I might kind of adapt that from song to song, but for the most of the time, I want to keep my drums working independent of the RC500, right? So just kind of keep that in mind as we go along. So I want to go through the button by button and track by track here. I keep my drum levels at 50, at 50, and that seems to be it. I think 100 is too loud. That's one thing that I typically do. So I'll find a drum loop and I'll just immediately turn the level down to 50, and that is let me see. As long as we're talking about that, that is, you just, to get to the drum menu, if you look at your on-off button, you'll see a row of like 9 buttons on the bottom, and holding down on-off will take you to your drum menu and take you to all the things that you need there. So I just basically, I don't really I don't change much on here. My drums pretty much stay on all the time. I mean, yes, you can turn parts on and off and so on and so forth. I personally don't do that. And I've essentially set it up so that it's the levels are at 50. Reverb I never play with. The pattern I change all the time. I have a certain bunch of a group of patterns that I use. It depends on what's good for the song. I'll lay down a rhythm track along with a drum loop, and then I'll go through and try out various patterns, and whichever ones fit is the one that I end up using. That said, I don't think I've used more. I use more than like 15 of them. How many drum patterns that they have on here? I do use the variations. We'll talk about that. And in my drums, that's pretty much it. I wanted to draw you guys' attention to, and we're not going to get into, all the things that you can do in the drum menu. So the settings I generally have, I play with, are the level. I do change the pattern. I don't change any other setting. I leave it pretty much set on studio for a kit. But where it says start, now you're gonna see start, then you're gonna see loop start, and then you're gonna move over one, and you're gonna see stop, and you're gonna see loop stop. So that means when you stop, when you hit I'll start, I'll stop button, which I set up on my on the 500. When I hit I'll start, I'll stop, it turns everything off, including the drums. So what I was talking about is I go down to where it says stop, loop stop, and then I just turn it off. And then that enables me to keep the drums going. So, and I really don't mess with anything else. I don't turn my parts on and off. The tone low, tone high is kind of cool, but I don't mess with that either. So quickly, just to recap what I do with the drums menu. Level is 50. Pattern is whatever the song calls for, and loop stop, where you would get over to stop, I turn the loop stop off most of the time these days. And I don't really play with anything else. I don't turn my parts on and off. I don't mess with the tone. Sorry for the sniffling. So that's what my drums are generally look like. Okay, so let me go button by button here. On track 1, keeping in mind I do have everything on verse chorus. Track 1 is going to be it's the track 1 button, the first of the little square buttons of the row of 9 on the bottom. It says track 1 and track 2. So you have separate settings for track 1 and track 2. I hold down the edit button to get to those settings. And again, here I don't really mess with a lot of stuff. But what I will do, and because this has been suggested for the first chorus looping and stuff, what I will do is the first thing I'll change on here, the only thing that I change, is my measure to auto, right? So I put measure to auto, and that just enables you to kind of, you can just kind of, it automatically gets the number of bars and measures and stuff. That's just, I can't really think of a better way to say that, but that's automatic. In other words, you're not saying it's 3 measures long because you're kind of locked into that, but automatic will let you do whatever you want. So that's track 1 measure is on auto. Loop sync, the folks say keep it on, keep it off. I say it depends on the song. That's me. But in general, they say they will tell you to keep it off. Depends on the song. Sometimes they'll keep it off. Sometimes they'll keep it on. Otherwise, I find my stuff tends to drift, and I really don't know why. But so that's personally works for me. Tempo sync also is kind of a similar thing. Loops, tempo sync on, tempo sync off. I leave it on, and I don't really mess with anything on track 1. So really, the only things I'm changing on track 1. Go back, recap. My level is at 100. My measure is on auto, T1 measure, auto. Loop sync on and loop sync off, or loop sync on, loop sync off, or tempo sync on, tempo sync off. Those are kind of interchangeable depending on the songs. I find that works better for some songs and doesn't work at all for others. The way I tend to like to use a looper, though, I tend to like to try to be right on top of the loop when it's changing. That's what I do, and it's a little crazy sometimes, and sometimes it leaves you some room for error, but that's how I do it. So anyway, over to track 2 are going to be very similar settings. So we're going to have the level's going to be 100. The only thing is that track 2 measure is set on free. So track 1 measure is set on auto, track 2 measure is set on free, so it's not getting it however many loops it thinks the track needs from whatever you set it on track 1. It just allows you to loop as many loops, or loop it for as many measures as you want. So that's track 2 measure is set on free. Again, loop sync on, tempo sync on, interchangeable. I leave those off sometimes, turn them on sometimes, whatever seems to work for me. Because the 2 things that will screw me up are the track lengths, and there's 3 places that you do that. But the track length, let me see, let me go back a little bit. Track 1 measure is always auto. Track 2 measure is always free. And we'll get to the other, where the other not hidden, but where the other track setting is, because it'll really kind of get you. Now, tempo, moving over to the tempo button, I tend to research my songs, like their BPM, their beats per minute. I just think that's me being a perfectionist. That's what I do. And these days I am putting notes in my tablet that I use for my lyrics, and I'll just have a quick a note underneath what the BPM is, and I will also have a quick note underneath what the pattern is. so that I can just pull up the song and put those in there. Right now, everything is kind of programmed in there song by song. I'm wanting to move over to just using this one setting because that's what I'm using anyway. But everything is programmed in there song by song. So I look up the BPM and I change the tempo to whatever the BPM says on the internet, and use my ears to see if it's accurate. But most of the time, it is. So tempo is just exactly that. You change that by changing the memory knob. Drums on and off, and you might have just heard that turned my drums on. But that has some settings under it. That's your rhythm settings, and again we talked about it, but I'll go over briefly. My level, I keep my drums down to 50, and I also find people complain about the volume of the preamp on the RC500, but keeping your drum levels lower, that doesn't seem to be an issue. But I'm not using it right now anyway. I tend to take my mic straight into the board, but I am going to get into vocal looping, and that's I'm gonna have to go ahead and use the mic input on that. But anyway, point was level up 50 for the drums, and keeping it low allows you to use the mic preamp and pretty much turn it most of the way up, but you'll have enough level there. A pattern is again interchangeable by song. I set up a button, and we'll talk about that also, to change my variations from A to B. I do that on just about every song I have. And if you hold down, if you hit it just right, if you hit your variation button, which I'll talk about, offbeat, it'll throw in a little fill for you. So that's yeah. So that's it. That's and yeah, just to kind of so loop stop is another one that you might want to take a look at. I never mess with loop start. I always have that going. Loop stop is either on or off. Loop stop off again will keep the drums playing. The downside being is that you have to have a button to turn that off, because otherwise you're gonna have to reach down there and like literally turn your button off to stop the drums. Not cool. So, but if you're okay with that, then go for it. Record count, I don't use that. Play count, I don't use that either. I don't mess with a fill. It's kind of a little bit of a beef of mine. Nothing really huge, but I'm finding that when I'm trying to assign a MIDI command to trigger the fill, it doesn't do it. And a lot of times I would like to be able to trigger the fill without changing the variation that I've got going on, but that's it. So anyway, so we are going to get over into the control menu. Now we just talked about all the rhythm stuff that I use. So we're not going to get into the rhythm part of that menu. But your next choice, okay, we're under memory, sorry. I'm just kind of like losing track of where I'm at. On memory play, because we're doing verse chorus looping, on memory play, well, we're under the record menu. Where are we here? I'm sorry, let me back up a minute. So when you hold down the memory button, the first option you're going to get is memory record underneath. The only thing I change on that, and I click as to see my options on the menu, I will scroll over to my loop length, and it is set to auto. Actually, that wasn't set to auto, but my loop length is set to automatic also, because the loop length under track 1 and the loop length under track 2, remember that loop length under track 1 is auto, loop length under track 2 is measure. But if you record something on there, sometimes it'll forget that it recorded something on there, I think. So what you want to do a lot of times, if you're finding like your measures are off, or the count is off, or something along those lines, you want to go over to loop length auto, and loop length to make that auto. If you might, and I've seen this happen a lot, so I stress this one, is that that's not, a lot of times that's what'll get you if your loops stop too quick or they keep going when you're trying to turn them off and all this sort of stuff. That might be one of the first places that you look. So loop length auto. Yeah. So yeah, let me see. So I'm going to hold down my memory button again. So your next option is to go over to play. Now the only thing I really change on play, I change my play mode. That'll be the first thing that you see on your menu. Memory, play, click that, and then play mode is going to be single. For the single change immediate, I don't play. Level, I don't change, and none of this stuff. They say change your from parallel to series, I think, is the best option. I don't know that's debatable whether that's optional or not. I don't know what exactly that is used for, but folks say, folks who have recommended the verse chorus looping bit say to change that to series, so that's what I do. So again, play mode is, I change that to multi. The only other thing I change is when I get over to track change, I change that to series. And that's it for that menu. Now, loop effects, excuse me, I don't use much, but I might assign that to a mini command, but we're not going to really talk about that because I don't use it right now. So loop effects I don't use. Rhythm, we've already done. And let me see if there's anything else under here. No, there isn't. Rhythm you can access by holding down the on and off button, so I don't really do anything with the rhythm menu at all. I don't have to, I've already done it. Now control is where things get kind of cool, but this is the way I've been setting up, and I based this, I think, initially off of Woodyard Music's video, I think, on his recommended way to set this up. The three settings that I've always had on the RC500, because I have a MIDI pedal now that controls some things. I have a FS7 that controls, that goes through my song patterns, because like I said, I'm still programming things song by song. But pedal one, so we're going to go memory one, we're going to go control, we're going to click on it, and it's going to say pedal one. Now pedal one is actually button one. It's the one that says over here record play. These are programmable, so you can get these to do whatever the heck you want them to do. And what I would do for pedal one function is I have it on record play stop clear, and I've had that set up that way from the start, since the time I really started using looping on this thing. So pedal two function is pedal 2, record play stop clear. So pedal 2 is record play stop clear for track 2, or track 2. So sorry, let me go back. Pedal 1 is track 1 record play stop clear, RPS, and then parentheses C. Pedal 2 function is track 2 record play stop clear, and track 3 is all start. And all start turns your everything on and everything off. So basically, you want to end the song, you go to all start. And again, if you have your loop stop off, you need like kind of an extra button to turn your drums off, because if you have loop stop off and you hit all start, and your drums won't stop. They just won't. You're gonna have to reach down and turn them off manually, or have another button to turn off your rhythm, play, stop, kind of thing. So anyway, if all you've got is the RC500, that would be where I would start. What are some of the kind of paint of the neck sorts of things? I couldn't really change variations of my drums that way. So I pretty much just kind of stuck with the one pattern, and which led me actually in the beginning. I also have an FS7. We'll get to that. So we've talked about all these buttons. We can move on to the FS7, and right now it is set up to scroll my memories up and down. And on your FS7, Control 1 is actually button B, and Control 2 is button A, and don't ask me why that is. It is what it is. Other people have mentioned that, but I have, so Control 1 is actually that, controlling that. That is my Control 1 button. My FS7 is B, and I have that set to memory decrease on the bottom. There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do with that, but right now I have that on memory decrease, and button 2 is memory increase, and basically that lets me go up and down through my song list on through my 99 memories on my RC500. And express, I don't use an expression pedal, so I don't do anything with a expression function. And now assigns are specifically for MIDI commands, and people suggested I would also recommend that you go through your RC500 parameter guide. But that said, assigns are for memory commands. So we talked about how I have the RC500 button set up. We talked about how I have the Boss FS7 to change the memories up and down. So let's get into, and I'm not going to get too heavy into this, and I really don't have buttons to show you, but basically I have a MIDI Captain, a Paint Audio Midi Captain that has 8 assignable switches, and the other ones turn their like little pages up and down. I don't know what those last 2 buttons are. I don't know. I don't really use them. I don't pretty much just, this isn't a MIDI Captain tutorial, so we're not going to get into that too much. But it has 4 programmable buttons on the top, labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 4 buttons on the bottom labeled A, B, C, and D. Now, so in order to assign, let's just go through that real quick on how to assign. But I'm not going to talk about. I don't think I'm going to do this button by button because it would make this a little bit redundant, kind of long. But I have assign 1 I will have for number 1. This makes the most sense for me, right? Assign 1 is button 1, and the source is CC1. Assign 1 being the assigned, button 1 being my button on my RC500, and the CC1 as a command. So my CC1 command, the next choice of that is source mode. I have that on toggle, and the target is the MIDI command, as the command that you're assigning to track 1. So target I have is track 1 clear, so go through again. Assign 1 on, source is CC1, source mode is toggle, target is track 1 clear. Underneath that, under 1A, I kind of do similar, but let's just say for the sake of argument 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because that's the 5th button. If you count from left to right, then go and then move down to the bottom. But 1A is I was assigned to assigned 5. Weird, but anyway, that's 1A is assigned to undo redo for track 1. So 1 is clear the whole track, clear all the track 1, and A is to undo redo. Just as a bonus, I'm finding. Excuse me again with the sniffing, but just as a bonus, I'm finding if I was to hit track clear on the RC500, my experience has been, other people have said it's not, that's not necessarily true, but anyway, my experience has been that it plays through a little bit of the clip, a little bit of that loop before it clears it. I don't want that. I want it to be able to silently clear. So track 1 is clear, and when you do that on a MIDI controller, you don't hear that. So track 1 is clear. Track 2, track 1A is track 1 undo redo. Button 2 is clear for track 2. Button 2B is track 2 clear or track 2 undo redo. So track 2 is clear. Track 2B is undo redo for track 2. Now, this is how I change my variations and patterns and stuff like that now. So, button 3, excuse me, button 3 is set for rhythm play stop, and button 4 is to change my variations. So if I want to change from like variations from A to B, I will step on button 3B. So 3 is to rhythm play stop. And on the bottom, underneath of that, 3C is the variations. I'm not finding a use for the other 2 buttons. It seems this setup seems to be everything I need to do. If all you're doing is playing along with your drum machines, like for example for a track, there's some tracks that I do that with, then I don't need to mess with the RC500 buttons at all. I can just kind of go over, if I've got my stuff already programmed, my songs programmed in, and my patterns, my tempo and stuff programmed into the memory, then I don't really need to mess with anything over here. I can just go ahead and 3 on my MIDI controller, 3 and 3C control my drums, and I need to play with anything else. So yeah, so that's about it. If a song really only has one part, a lot of times I'll just use track 1 to record and play. And what I was doing before, well, I was kind of using track 2 to do track 1 undo redo, but whatever. What I'm doing now was just, if I'm only using one track to play, then record, play, stop, clear on track 1. I just use track 1, and I just use the button on the bottom to undo, redo parts on track 1. What's an example of that? There's a melody line in the song "Sex on Fire" that I turn on and off for the chorus. So I record that in the beginning, and then I undo it. Then when the chorus comes back around, I redo it, and so on and so forth. So, so if you're just doing track 1 to record, and you're just needing like another loop to come in, undo, redo on track 1, on undo, redo on a separate MIDI. MIDI controller. Undo, redo, setting a button up for that is also very important. It's also, undo, redo is useful for making mistakes. You can just kind of go and undo your last. So that's, to me, that's very important to have around, I think, in my opinion. Track 1 clear is after you're done recording stuff and things. Yeah, it's a good practice to go to track 1 clear, track 2 clear, and clear that all out. So I think that's just a best practices thing for me. But it's also useful if you screw the whole thing up and where things are falling out of sync or something along those lines. You go to track 1 clear and it'll get rid of all that. You'll just be kind of stuck having to play along and maybe redo your loops, but you won't be sounding like a mess. So that is it. It's coming up. This video is coming up on 30 minutes long, so I didn't really want to make this too overly long. But that, to me, is everything that I need. I can't think of any other function that I need on here. And I mean, I can get creative with other stuff, but this seems to be to do everything I want now. You know, I can do verse chorus songs. I can do like 1-track looping. I can do play along with my button drum machine by just using the drum controls on my MIDI controller. So I use those 3 things. I use it that way most of the time, and so I don't really need any other settings on here to do anything else. I might want to get creative with like one of the other two buttons on my MIDI controller, or I might find that other songs I might want to be doing other things, but for the most part, I really don't need anything else. And that's about it. And I wanted to keep this at less than that, but this video's at 30 minutes now. So, but if you are a brand new looper, if you went through with these settings and just kind of set everything up, and if all you had was the RC500 to be track 1 would be record, play, stop, clear. Track 2, record, play, stop, clear. Track 3, I'll stop, and you'll have to change your songs by reaching down and flipping through them, unfortunately. And you won't have a way to change your variations, but you'll have a functional pedal to get you through the night for the most part, all the time. But anyway, like and subscribe to my channel if you like. But I did want to run through this. I've mentioned this in like forums and stuff, and I just wanted to give people an overview of how I have everything set up. So that's it. So like my channel, subscribe to my channel. Feel free to comment, and we will talk to you again soon. And thanks. Hope this was helpful. Let me know and comment below, please, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer. Thanks.